Hello,
Oh, look at that.
everyone. Oh, he's getting excited. This is Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Welcome to the One Bitcoin Show. Today is December the 12th, 2019. Strong hand, holder of last resort, proof of keys. Oh man, this is your home of Bitcoin insider information, and we've got the apex predator here. He's offended by selling. He is Trace Mayer. Welcome to the show. You were impressed by this Jitsi thing there, or I guess you were. I don't know. You had a happy side.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Thanks so much for having me. We're gonna have some fun tonight.
Baby.
5th interview of the day. Save the best for last.
Dude, well, have any of them been live like this one? Because this is live. People are in the chat. They're very excited about this. So
no, this is the only live one. So so we're gonna have some fun with it.
All right. Let me ask you a basic question before we get into this question is a good leading question, which is gonna open up a lot of topics. Now, where is it? How should the average Joe store Bitcoin? How should the average Joe store? Because every time you're on this show, you scare a lot of average Joes. I got to tell you, when you start talking about your storage protocols. Okay, so I want to take this out right from the start before we get into all the proof of keys nitty gritty. How should the average Joe store his Bitcoin?
If you have $100 of Bitcoin, put $100 of thought into it. But if you've got more value, put more thought into it. And people should be trying to learn, and develop their human capital and their skills and their ability. And so, try to keep improving the ability that you have in storing your private keys. Bitcoin Core is wonderful. Bitcoin Core, encrypt the wallet, it's free. That's going to be pretty safe. Bitcoin Core is. And branch out from there. With Bitcoin Core, you're running a full node. You're doing all your own validation right off the bat. You're holding your own private keys. You can branch out from there to using, different cold storage methods and everything like Armory. There's on Proof of Keys, we have Glacier Protocol and Smart Custody guide by Christopher Allen that people can use. But yeah, just for the average Joe that's just starting, get right into it with Bitcoin Core. Run a full node. Do that.
Then how about the hardware devices? You didn't mention the hardware devices.
That's because I don't like using special purpose hardware devices because the people know what you're using it for. So it just really, I like using general purpose computers, and then
I see
a Purism laptop, I can't recommend stuff that's not the best, right? Because people might think, oh, I should do something that's not the best for securing the coins. I got a tinfoil sombrero that's huge, I've just seen so many of my friends get wrecked really bad because they've procrastinated or they've been just ignorant or lazy on how they should be storing their keys. They haven't put in the work. So you're not gonna get shortcuts from me, but maybe Bitcoin Core and then move out from there. But Bitcoin's serious and there are consequences. And when you lose those Bitcoins, it's painful.
Now I want to say something about the average. The average Joe isn't too worried about people knowing he has a hardware device for a specific purpce. He should be. He should be. He should be. You're saying you should say, okay, there you go. The average Joe's. In your opinion,
think about this. You're buying a Bitcoin specific piece of hardware off of Amazon. They got your shipping address.
Your ISP. You shouldn't buy it off of
your ISP. Your ISP knows that you're using Bitcoin with the traffic and the ports. You're connecting to Trezor or Ledger's server in order to query the balance of your Bitcoins. You're not even running your full node, so you're trusting them to tell you actually have Bitcoins or not. And you're giving them all this data that they probably turn around and sell. and even if they don't sell it, they're a giant honeypot to get hacked. And then a hacker knows that you've got Bitcoins and balances, right? Yeah. So, I mean, it's just a bad idea, in my opinion. Just run Bitcoin Core. At least that's gonna, that's really been built to try to minimize data leaks and privacy leaks and everything like that. And then you can move out and use more advanced stuff like a satellite with a computer that's never touched the internet. Then you've got to, then you're really doing it right. Not even your ISP knows that you're doing Bitcoin stuff. Like, how cool is that?
Oh man, pound that!
It's part of the ethos. Pound the like button. Huh?
I was going to say pound that like. Adam is trying to make people less scared, and I just made people more scared. So this is a classic Trace appearance on the show. It starts out right away. Did you hear about the Keep Key situation that was recently? They had a.
Oh yeah, Kraken showed you that's not very secure.
Yeah. Yes.
Kraken hacked the Keep Key, right?
Yes. You were a Kraken fan yourself there too.
I was a big investor in Kraken, and part of the reason is because they take security serious. If you don't take security serious, you're going to get wrecked in this space.
All right.
It's just a matter of time, So you need to have this adversarial way of thinking. Like, how are people going to steal my Bitcoins? People should be worried about that and be and figure out how to secure their Bitcoins in a way that they feel comfortable so that they're not having to worry about that.
Yeah. Okay. Now I want to go back to the average Joe again, because I had someone, and I love proof of keys. I love this whole thing. I've been putting your little segment in my audio podcast. Everyone can listen to the audio podcast or watch here. Disruptmeister.com. Follow me on Twitter at TechBalt, TECHBALT. And by the way, Trace is linked to below, all proof of keys. But I had a guest on, and I asked him about proof of keys, and he's just like, there are so many average Joe type people out there that they lose more Bitcoin by trying to send it off of the exchange. And I thought about that. He says, there's got to, there has to have been so much Bitcoin lost from people not sending it properly, sending it to a Bcash address, doing all sorts of things. And he said, all these people are getting in the proof of keys. For some people, it's just better to keep it on the exchange. Now, I don't like that, but I did think about that a little bit. It made me think, and some people were like, what's the educate? I mean, you've got to have an education aspect of this program also, where people know the basics, where they're comfortable actually moving their Bitcoin off of these exchanges, because there are a few of them that might be they might make some huge mistakes by trying to participate in proof of keys. And I really hadn't thought about that before.
Well, first, like I don't disagree. There's like an unlimited amount of stupid in the world, right?
Yes.
But I'm not aware of anybody that has tried to participate in proof of keys and has actually lost their Bitcoin. Okay, I just haven't seen a single tweet about that.
No.
I haven't seen a single comment in YouTube videos. Like, I haven't seen that. I mean, I would really like to know, like, how did somebody screw this up? Like, how did you copy and paste the address wrong and not be able to withdraw it? I mean,
what he
like, what's the problem here? Is it the user interface on the exchange? Like, what's that?
He was with the person wasn't attacking that this has happened with proof of keys before. He's just saying, in the history of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, he felt there have been more people losing coins from sending it incorrectly or sending it to the wrong address or not knowing what they're doing.
Based on what data? I mean, he feels it, but like, where's the data?
There was no data.
People have lost way more Bitcoin with untrustworthy. Yeah, exactly. People have lost way more Bitcoin with untrustworthy custodians than they've lost like sending to the wrong key or whatever.
I should bring
and start small. Start small. Start with like $5 worth of Bitcoin. Get comfortable with the technology. Like, move it around. You don't when you're practicing and when you're doing the drill. And when you're learning something, learn it incrementally, like figure out how this stuff works, especially, you learn how to do it with Bitcoin, and then you can learn how to do it with other coins, and each coin like might have something unique to it. And this is all part of learning how to use the technology, and it's investing in yourself and developing the human capital. And that's what Proof of Keys is really about, is, this transfer of knowledge, like figuring out how to do this stuff. And, we talk about it and it generates the discussion, and then everybody's able to help everybody else like figure out how to do this. But to try and scare people and keep them ignorant and keep them a slave instead of claiming their monetary sovereignty, like, I think that's just that's doing them a great disservice. I want people to be first-class Bitcoin citizens that have claimed their monetary sovereignty, that are running full nodes, holding their own private keys, because that helps strengthen the Bitcoin network. It decentralizes it, makes it more censorship resistant. You've got these economically substantive transactions being verified by full nodes that are enforcing a 21 million total Bitcoin rule, for example. You got people holding their private keys, so you don't have a giant honeypot for a government to seize or for hackers to exploit or whatever. All of this is just, it's I don't see any downside to it. And if people have a bad experience because they made a mistake, they're probably not going to make that mistake again because it's a little painful. Yes. And that's good. That's part of the learning process. Skin in your knee. You got to learn how to ride the bike.
Yes. Well, I think it was Alex Svetsky who brought this up on my show, and I think he was being contrarian to an extreme. But I mean, he I don't know. I should have brought him on to talk to you today. Maybe he'll contact you about his concerns over the whole situation. Again, I love it. I think everyone should be talking about it. You talked about it on 5 different shows today. Let's see what happens if some of these exchanges actually get called out, and how many more people can be educated. But it's very important, people. Educate there has to be a huge educational aspect to this project. People need to know what they're doing before because, I mean, one thing, oh, sorry. You go.
Well, I was just going to say, Bitcoin's the great educator. I announced Proof of Keys last year. Quadriga CX failed. Cryptopia failed. Ouch. Hundreds of millions of dollars lost. I doubt there's anybody who lost any Bitcoins last year doing Proof of Keys. And Peter McCormick, who runs the What Bitcoin Did podcast, he had half a Bitcoin on Cryptopia that he'd completely forgotten about, that he went and got because of Proof of Keys, and he otherwise would have lost that. So just doing your couch cleaning and finding Bitcoins down in the cushions and getting them safe, that's another just incredibly important aspect of this.
That is an interesting story. There are some old timers that maybe they think, oh, I don't have any coins at exchanges, I'm better than that. And they forgot back in like 2013, they had something somewhere. So yeah, now it's time to clean those cushions. Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that.
You do that every year, it's going to be less likely that you forget and have unclaimed property that ends up escheating to the state. Or you get some of these exchanges or whatnot that introduce a storage fee, and so they just start taking the Bitcoin that was forgotten there.
Yeah,
that's why you need to do this every year. You just don't want your Bitcoins eaten away or forgotten about or lost or whatever. It's and you learn a lot in the process, demanding the keys, proving them.
Now, since this is going to be bigger than last year, let's talk hypothetical here, because again, there was someone in my comment section the other day that said, I don't think I'm going to move them off. I'm going to keep them at Coinbase, because if Coinbase went down, all of cryptocurrency would go. There'd be no more Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. Now, I corrected him. I said, that's out of the question. There's nothing that's too big to fail. There's nothing that could bring down all of Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. No single entity going away. But if
we already saw that with Mt. Gox.
But that was 2013. It did, and now Bitcoin is a lot stronger than that too. But what would happen if Coinbase went down? What do you think would happen if Coinbase went down?
This is interesting, because I put my tweet out about Proof of Keys last year, and 3 days later, Coinbase makes an announcement that they're going to be testing their cold storage procedures and moving a bunch of Bitcoins on chain. And then they moved like 850,000 Bitcoins the following week, trying to calm everybody down. Like, oh, we really have the coins, and the keys. But, if Coinbase were to fail, a bunch of people who have paper Coinbase Bitcoins would now realize that they don't have any Bitcoin. And the people who actually have Bitcoin would realize that a lot of paper Coinbase Bitcoin that was suppressing the price because of the increased supply of Bitcoin no longer exists, and that their Bitcoin is now even more scarce. So, I think it'd actually be a net positive for hodlers of last resort who have their keys and have their coins.
Yes, that is.
Like look at Quadriga CX, look at Cryptopia, look at Mt. Gox. Bitcoin price is way higher now than it was when we had Mt. Gox around.
Yeah.
Like bring on the failures. Like destroy all of that paper Bitcoin out there, buddy. Like, to me, that's just phenomenal. Or let it stay there and let me keep buying real Bitcoin at the suppressed price and taking possession of it.
Burn that.
I like to buy my Bitcoin cheap.
Yes. Well, we all do. We all do. Well, those who value our wealth in Bitcoin, there's all sorts of other people that value their wealth in Tether and are just flipping back and forth. It's nonsense. But yes, burn the paper Bitcoin. Now, I want to talk about incentivizing people to participate in this. You had a tweet that was, I didn't think it was controversial, but some people attacked you because of that. Talking about a proof of keys coin, maybe issuing a crypto-dividend. I loved it. I loved it. I took it to a new level. I thought maybe someone's got some old altcoin. They can revive it by forking it off and airdropping it to Bitcoin holders that hold their Bitcoin on January the 3rd. I love the proof of keys coin idea. Have you given that idea up? You don't have to create it. Anyone could do it. If someone actually did that, would you endorse or talk about it at least? Or what's your take on proof of keys coin?
Well, my experience with the fork wars, we didn't know what would happen with Bcash being the real Bitcoin, right? We didn't really know what would happen. But these forks they're kind of tasty. Yes. Especially if they have some economic value to them. So, I don't mind them at all. I think they're great. And I also like the idea of having more species out there. Like diversity helps the ecosystem, makes it more resilient. And if there were some type of a proof of keys coin or some type of an airdrop or fork or whatever that incentivize people to be holding their own private keys off exchange, I think that could exert some economic pressure on the exchanges, because now you're creating this additional asset. The problem, though, is there's no real way to distinguish between it being an exchange versus just the individual holders of the Bitcoin. So, logistically, it's difficult to kind of do that. And I don't like creating coins just willy-nilly for the fun of it. I think it would need to be useful. It would need to be a coin that is going to be testing some type of a feature or something that, that we otherwise aren't testing on testnet. Because, testnet's nice and all, but there's not really economic consequence to testing on testnet. When you're able to test with economic consequences, that's a lot more fun. I've been a big fan of a lot of the different white papers that have come out, whether it's on side chains or Mimblewimble or, their simplicity, a lot of these different white papers that have come out, and it'd be fun to, be testing some of these features in a real economic environment. And what better way to do that than, just doing it to where Bitcoin holders get it. And yes. Why not give it out on January 3rd? Because that's like proof of keys. Give it out based on a snapshot at the end of day on January 3rd. And then, it's not going to harm Bitcoin holders at all because they get it for free. If somebody wants to buy the thing, like all the better. Who knows why they would want to buy it? Maybe they want to test that feature, right? Like, why shouldn't we be trying to test these features, especially in like live, real, economically substantive environments? Look at Litecoin. Litecoin's been around. It's done great. We've been able to activate SegWit there first, then before on Bitcoin. We're able to put $1 million into a SegWit address because people were saying, oh, their SegWit addresses aren't secure, blah, blah, blah. Well, prove it. Put $1 million in a SegWit address. Nobody stole it for like 4 months. So that helps resolve the, if you're raising a bunch of FUD that like SegWit addresses aren't secure, but you can't go steal the $1 million that's in the SegWit address, like that's a bunch of BS, So I think there's aspects of this that I think, if we could find some usefulness for the coin or whatever, and we're able to test feature sets that we otherwise don't get to test, or we're able to just play around with something that we don't otherwise get to play around with. I mean, there's some cool technology getting developed out there, and it's fun to play around with it. So like, I don't understand why people are so dogmatic and don't want to play around with stuff. Like that's what this is about, is innovation. And when you innovate, like you have to go through a lot of different iterations. You have to go through a lot of different, you got to test a bunch of different ideas. And so, and especially, as we move into this, opening up this new front in the war for monetary sovereignty, we had the scarcity front, that's Europe in World War II, and now we're opening another front in the Pacific, and that's going to be privacy, anonymity, fungibility. And at least, I've been in this space for a while, and I've researched a lot of the stuff. And even back in 2015, I was banging the drum like, we need to remove the smell from Bitcoin. We need to really get some serious privacy stuff out there. And, there's no real easy solution. Like with the block size debate, the answer was very easy. But in the privacy, anonymity, fungibility debate, the answer is not easy. In fact, I don't even think there's an answer out there right now. So reasonable minds can differ all over the place on what the answer is. And that's great, because then we get to test lots of ideas and features, and we get to do a lot of innovation. And the more privacy stuff that's out there, the more difficult it makes it on Chainalysis companies and stuff like that to try to, track all of this stuff, raise their costs. These are little startups that have to get funded too, and they have to get revenue for their services. So just keep raising their expenses so they're not able to provide as good a service. This is a lot. There's a lot to this war, into this game, and it's a lot of fun. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that.
I love that. I never thought about that aspect. Make more and more privacy options out there so that companies like Chainalysis have to keep on hiring more and more people to figure them out. I like it. It's
yeah. Think about it. They just laid off 39 people. Like, yeah, I mean, okay, so they got to lay off 39 people. And meanwhile, we've rolled out stuff like Mimblewimble on an extension block on Litecoin, and Monero putting Mimblewimble into a sidechain. And then we got Monero with ring signatures, and we got Zcash, and we got like all this different innovation that's going on. And yet they're short staffed, because they had to lay a bunch of people off. So, let's keep doing whatever we can to raise the cost in terms of time, money, human expertise, subject matter expertise. Keep raising the bar so that it becomes more and more difficult to even find the people to do the work, right? And then that makes it more difficult for anybody that's trying to engage in the surveillance type stuff on these cryptocurrencies.
Now, the privacy front in this multi-front war, I like your comparison there. Do you think it's going to get toxic like the previous debate, the block size debate? Do you think people should take this with a different approach to this, or can we even help what happens here?
Oh, I mean, people get toxic if they're toxic people. But it's, I don't think that we're going to the block size war, they were directly attacking our monetary sovereignty by trying to do a hard fork, right? They're trying to change a consensus rule definition. That's a direct attack on the monetary sovereignty. And you make a direct attack on that, you're going to meet resistance. And so, but in the privacy front, where like, look, some of these solutions are not going to get rolled into Bitcoin anytime soon. And some will never get rolled in ever. Like Mimblewimble will never get rolled into the base layer of Bitcoin. It's just not very feasible to do that. And so, if there's a coin that does have Mimblewimble in the base layer as a feature set, why would that get toxic, right? Maybe you could get some intra coin competition, but let the best ideas win in that case. If as long as we're being honest and doing science, and looking at this objectively and not because we are trying to shill our ICO or something, I think that we can have very productive discussions on trying to figure out how to get the best solution or solutions, plural, in order to have privacy, anonymity, and fungibility. And that's a sliding scale, depending on how much of that you actually want as a user. And sometimes you want a knife, sometimes you want a fork, sometimes you want them both. Sometimes you need an extra spoon and a plate in order to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And the more utensils and the more tools that we have, the better, in my opinion. And so, hopefully we're all on the same team going after monetary sovereignty, which needs scarcity, which Bitcoin has won that front, and even Christine Lagarde is kind of ceding that point. And then the other critical part is the fungibility, anonymity stuff. You were going to say?
You said the scarcity battle is over. I see direct attacks brewing for this next decade. People are already saying, "Oh, we need more for miners' rewards. There's not enough Bitcoin. People got in early; they were rewarded more so than latecomers. We need to increase the number of Bitcoin." I see that as a direct attack on Bitcoin, increasing the 21 million limit, and I see it. I see talk of it already. And I mean, in the next 2 years, I would not be shocked if someone tries to create a 42 million Bitcoin and say it's the real Bitcoin. I see that as something coming in the next decade. Also, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, people have talked about that since the beginning of Bitcoin, right? But like, that's not going to happen. Like, it would be way easier to increase the block size than to increase the max number of coins.
No. I'm not saying that. This is the thing. The Bitcoin will remain the 21 million Bitcoin, but the complainers are going to get louder. I think there are going to be more and more people complaining, and maybe they're just doing it to weaken Bitcoin in hopes, because you can't change that 21 million limit. You can't. It won't be changed.
Yeah, nobody.
No, but there are people that talk.
I mean, I haven't run into any. Yeah, but I haven't run into anybody that's taken seriously that is proposing an increase in the number of Bitcoins.
They only
is there anyone serious that's taken seriously? Like, what's their name?
I haven't seen any big names yet, but we never could have predicted that back in the day with the block size thing, that the Bitcoin Jesus was all of a sudden going to be against Bitcoin. So, I mean, it would only take, we can't predict the next treacherous person out there. But I think it'll happen. I think someone will be like, "Oh, it's unfair. It's unfair. There were only 21 million," and be quite a public person and get behind it. And it'll cause some trouble and it'll scare some people, but we'll just end up with a new fork of Bitcoin. And it will be great for those of us who hold Bitcoin to get this 42 million Bitcoin that will just,
that's the problem. I mean, that's the problem. Like, even if someone wanted to try to do that, and even if they forked it, like, the economic substance behind Bitcoin, and it's part of the social contract of why people buy it, is because it's got that limit to it. So, I mean, like, that's just a non-starter discussion. It's not going anywhere.
That's the reason why, I think hardcore people buy it like me. I mean, it's so impossible for me to believe that someone who really understood Bitcoin would want that to change. I mean, that's
Well,
to become like the
but
Federal Reserve and just decide, oh, we're going to print more now. I mean, that's just it would ruin it.
Just because somebody has a YouTube channel or a Twitter account or whatever doesn't mean that their opinion matters. What
True.
matters is the economic substance that you're able to bring to this. How much mining power, full nodes, how many Bitcoins are you hodling? You know, you got to have economic substance and power in order to matter in this debate. And then you've got to be able to persuade other users, you know, because you can't force anybody to run your software. You got to use persuasion. Because everybody gets to run whatever software they want to run. Like it's like herding cats. And I mean, you look at the amount of hash power that's going into the Bitcoin network and the sunk costs on all that mining equipment, and then the number of full nodes that are out there. I mean, it's an absolute fortress of validation that's going on. And those are just full nodes that have connected recently, right? You got hodlers that haven't even connected for years. You know, I mean, like the Bitcoin hodlers are insane. Did you see that article about 11.5 million Bitcoin haven't even moved in the last 12 months?
Yes.
Like Bitcoin hodlers are insane. Like they're like a rock. They're like a mountain. Like you're not moving a mountain, you know, like the mountain's just there. You want to become part of the mountain like Roger Ver did? Scoop, thanks for your fork that I got to turn into more Bitcoin to make my mountain bigger. Like Bitcoin's a mountain. Yes. Like the hodlers of last resort are a mountain. They're not going anywhere.
Dude, I like that. I'm
do?
I'm writing that down now. That's beyond strong hand. The mountain. It's not moving. Pound that like button. All right, we got a question. Well, we got a few questions here. Let me just before I ask you the question, can you show me that gold thing that you showed beforehand? Show
my gold cup. You like my cup? You can't drink out of a Bitcoin.
Dude, man, you're flaming.
Solid gold, buddy. Solid gold.
There's some people that are going to say that now. There's some gold bugs that's going to be their new line. You can't drink out of a Bitcoin. Thanks to Trace. Thanks to Trace. You see, I am not. Everyone knows I'm not a fan of gold, but Trace is, and I wanted him to show his nifty cup out there.
Well, gold is the ancient metal of kings. You know, gold is about monetary sovereignty also. You know, that's the goal. The purpose, the aim is monetary sovereignty. The means, gold, Bitcoin, you know, some privacy fungibility coin, you know, that's the means. And then the action or the result is going to be, you know, what we're after. And so, you know, keep the eye on the prize. The prize is the monetary sovereignty. That's the prize.
It's the prize, baby. Keep your eye on the prize. All right. Now we got the question. I'm going to try to read this correctly because it's a little complicated. This is from Roman Q. He says, if we overlay the exponential reinforcement of the first 6 network effects with stock to flow and credit contraction, do you expect the 7th network effect to happen gradually or suddenly?
You know, there's 7 billion people on this planet. They're all exercising human action. And we have to keep in mind that individuals, we measure in terms of days and months and perhaps years, right? But nation states, they measure in terms of years and decades. So for a nation state, it's going to happen all at once, pretty much. You know, it's 20 years, probably. You know, first 10 years is proof of concept. The next 10 years, based on that stock to flow model, $1 million Bitcoin, you know, it's gonna have a market cap rivaling the U.S. dollar probably pretty soon.
That stock to flow
for an
model.
Individual.
Okay, yeah, keep going.
Yeah, but for the individual, you know, 20 years is a significant amount of time, right? For an individual, it's gradually for the individual, but it's all at once in terms of like the the history of humanity. So yeah, I mean, I'd kind of look at it that way. It takes a while for new technology to get understood and adopted and applied. And Bitcoin's just in the beginning stages of that. And yet look at where it's at, 130 billion dollar market cap. Man, it's just wild.
I want to ask you about that stock to flow guy, the guy that makes the stock to flow charts. Plan B, you know him, right?
Yeah, Plan B.
What do you think about that whole? Some people say it's blown out of proportion, and people are worshiping him. That you shouldn't blindly follow him. What do you think about stock to flow? His whole chart.
Well, one, the math is good. Like it really is co-integrated. Now, the conclusions that we draw from co-integrated data, multivariable co-integrated data, we all get to draw different conclusions on that. What I find so fascinating about it is, previous price history on stuff, as we learn in human action, doesn't necessarily tell us what future price action is going to be, because there could be changes. The price of a water bottle could be $1 for 10 years, and then it could be $50 the next day because there was a hurricane or something, right? But when we're dealing with Bitcoin, it's global. There are not really any supply disruptions. Maybe Mt. Gox or Silk Road or the mining happening or whatever, but not a supply disruption like you would get with a hurricane and water, and then we've got billions of transactions done by tens of millions of individuals, all learning and applying their knowledge to try and make economic calculation. And so that's the data that is co-integrated. So, I make the argument with the 7 network effects and a lot of other arguments. We've got safetying with the Bitcoin standard. So we've laid the fundamental case out, and then Plan B adds, some of the econometrics to it that help us see and maybe learn some things from large data sets of individual economic calculation, right? The pricing signals that we've gotten. And maybe it's just showing that there are a lot of people that come in these waves that bet that Bitcoin is going to become that world reserve settlement currency, and it just kind of grows that way. And that's what we're seeing with this co-integrated data. I don't know, it's but it's going to be really interesting to find out whether the model gets falsified, because it's got to be $100,000 or above sometime between now and December 31st, 2021. Like, is the model going to be falsified or not? Because falsifying a co-integrated model, anybody who wants to dispute the model, like, please give me different reasoning, right? Like, give me different reasoning than a supply shock from the halvening and all these fundamental network effects that are taking place, and the infrastructure and the ecosystem and the number of people and the number of unique accounts. I mean, there's actually a case to be made that we could see $100,000 Bitcoin to satisfy that co-integrated model. But, if you're going to make a different case, like, why? What's your reasoning? Like, what's your model? And why? What's the reasoning going in behind your model? And I haven't really, it's hard to value Bitcoin. It's like a dog on LSD, like chasing a rabbit. Like, nobody knows what this thing's going to do tomorrow. But when we're looking at the 7 network effect thesis and we're looking at the Bitcoin standard, that gives us a model for where this thing could be in 10 or 20 or 50 years, right? And so what's the path to get there? And that's what this stock to flow model for the price from Plan B is kind of showing us. It's showing us the path that we get there. It's like a street, and you're walking the dog, and the dog is going to wander all over the street, but the street is still taking you somewhere, and you're still following that street, right? But the co-integration is the length of the leash on the dog, as it's wandering all over the street. So where's the street taking us? World Reserve settlement currency, seventh network effect, right? That's where it's taken us. And the price going all over the place, that's just the dog on LSD wandering wherever, but it's still co-integrated with the length of the leash. So we've still got these bands of where the price should be. It should be within these bands, or the model gets falsified.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to the 2020s, and I hope it doesn't get falsified. 2021, we got 2 years. Let's see it. I know we're one day closer to an all-time high. One interesting thing that you said, a dog on LSD. Very interesting comparison. Had you ever seen a dog on LSD? I mean, that one I didn't expect coming from you there. Where did that come to reality anywhere? Did you ever see a video of a dog on LSD? That must be wild.
I have seen some pretty funny videos on YouTube with these animals that eat stuff. It's really funny.
All right.
It's like, man, I wonder what that animal's thinking.
We will leave it at that. People, be careful with your psychedelics. Just don't let them lay around. And the dog will eat anything. People, be real. I mean, people treat dogs like humans. I mean, on the plane today, everyone's got a darn dog. Someone even had a cat on the plane today. But yeah, be careful with your animals. Help keep the pet population nice. Get your pet spayed or neutered. I'm Bob Barker. Okay, so let's go to this question here. Can you ask?
And your dog is not a child, by the way.
Well, yeah, that's a very important.
It's not human.
A lot of people don't understand that anymore.
A lot of people, especially in these cities, they think their dogs are kids.
They do.
Guess what? Your dog is not gonna take care of you when you're old. It's not gonna come visit you in the nursing home. Have some time preference. Think about the future, people.
Bitcoin, long-term thing. That's how you tie it all in. It's about long-term thinking. The people that have the kids instead of the dogs, and they save. Oh, why are you saving that Bitcoin? It's for my children. People don't get that sometimes. They don't want their kids to work in the future. It's a good thing. I meet I've talked to quite a few people that are like, I'm stashing sats, I'm buying it every day, so my kids won't have to work, so my kids will have a great life. I think that's some real long-term thinking beyond your own lifespan there. So people with
and it's sound money, sound families. Fiat money, you got a fiat family where your kid's a dog instead of a human.
God.
I mean, what a lonely existence, for real.
We're going beyond Bitcoin here. We're going beyond. This is good stuff. This is like the Saturday show people beyond Bitcoin. Okay, we got to get to this question. This is a good question. Can you ask him what he thinks of Kraken's proof of reserves? Is that sufficient with being able to shuffle coins around?
Oh man, gotta throw me the hard ball, huh? So proof of reserves, the last time that was done, I think, was 2014. So, that is what it is.
Okay.
I don't know that people should be putting much stock in proof of reserves. It's 5 years old. And they haven't done one since, and I was actually talking with Jesse about this. Things are a lot more complicated. The security situation at Kraken is more complicated. There's a lot more assets at risk, customer assets. And so they have to be bringing some serious security brain power and everything, and processes and procedures and multi-signature and geographic distribution. So, it's just a lot more difficult to run a proof of reserves than it was 5 years ago. But, Kraken hasn't done a proof of reserves, and I'm not going to be like Roger Ver saying I read some piece of paper that said Mt. Gox had the money. I haven't seen anything at Kraken, so don't rely on me.
Here's another Kraken question. Does Kraken have plans for implementing Lightning Network?
I don't know, but they recently hired Pierre Richard. So, and he's been doing a lot of Lightning Network stuff. I just saw a tweet. He went to Visa, gave a presentation at Visa today, all about Lightning Network from 9:30 till 4 in the afternoon. Must have been pretty serious. Visa must have been taking it pretty serious. So, you'd probably have to ask ask him or someone else there at, on the team with deposits on like what's cracking an offer. I mean, just offering Bitcoin deposits kind of gets the job done pretty well. So, what's the incremental benefit from all the tech resources that would go into implementing Lightning? I don't know. I think it'd be pretty cool, but I don't know if it's worth all the money and time.
Something you just brought up, Pierre spent an entire workday talking to Visa about the Lightning Network. That's very interesting. That's pretty big news.
Yeah, and probably Visa employees attended it, right? So like they're taking time out of their day to go learn all about Lightning Network from Pierre. That's pretty cool.
Well, that's interesting because everyone says, oh, the Bitcoin will never be able to beat the credit cards. They can do like 1 million transactions in a second or whatever they can do. And yet the credit cards want to learn about Lightning Network. That's interesting. That's I wonder what that's.
Oh man, about. I mean if the credit cards man, they could really reduce a lot of their fraud and other costs by rolling becoming a Bitcoin payment processor basically. That could be a great solution for them. And they'd want to partner with someone like a Kraken in order to be doing the exchanging, so that there's not that exchange rate risk. So, I mean, what we're seeing, Bitcoin's had its proof of concept. Now people are actually taking it seriously at these biggest companies in the world and looking at ways to implement stuff and actually learn about it and everything. The network effects are real, man. Like there are a lot of hodlers out there and they might want to spend some money on coffee and they're going to have to use Lightning Network to do that because the transaction fees are about a cup of coffee, right?
Yeah.
So, because Bitcoiners can afford transaction fees.
Now, we got another question for you. Ask Trace if Bitcoin Cash settled derivatives are good or bad for Bitcoin. I know what the answer to that is.
I mean, I don't really like them, but they are what they are. And I mean, at the end of the day, more liquidity is better, in my opinion. And okay, so if they do end up suppressing the price, well, it's just paper Bitcoin that they've got. They don't actually have real Bitcoin. And so, if the price is suppressed, I like buying my Bitcoin cheaper. I don't really mind that. I'll buy Bitcoin cheaper and then I'll demand possession of it. So give me the real Bitcoin and not the paper Bitcoin. So I don't think there's much to be afraid of with a Bitcoin price suppression scheme like there was with gold. Gold was just much more susceptible to censorship than Bitcoin is because the cost to run a gold full node so high. But in Bitcoin's case, just proof of keys, demand the keys, withdraw your Bitcoins, and then you've got the real Bitcoin, not the paper Bitcoin. Leave someone else with the paper Bitcoin, like a Quadriga CX customer or a Mt. Gox customer. Just don't be one of them.
Let's now we're tying it back into we've come full circle. Give us some more information about proof of keys. It's going to be January 3rd, but give everyone a little lowdown on it so we can tie everything up. So just in case people don't understand exactly what it is and where they can go, just they got it all clear right now.
Yeah, well, first, thanks for helping support the initiative. I mean, it really is a public service announcement. Anyways, January 3rd, we celebrate our monetary sovereignty. Proofofkeys.com. We have a little countdown clock, a little honey badger running off with the keys, not your coins. So you run your own full node, you hold your own private keys. It's really that simple. If you want your monetary sovereignty, then come and claim it. Otherwise just remain a slave. It's that easy.
Yes. Wow. That I like that. I like that. Hey, I want since you brought up privacy beforehand, I want to go back to that real quick too. And again, people, please follow him on Twitter. Check out Proof of Keys. Do it. The best thing to do is spread the word and get your stuff off Coinbase. But I want to go back to privacy. People keep talking about Coinjoin stuff. You think it's a good privacy practice? Is it sustainable?
I mean, I don't know. How do you know that you're not coin joining with a terrorist or someone that's trying to evade sanctions? And then you try, then those Bitcoins, you try to move them into your exchange account or whatever. I think that's a bad idea. You know, this is part of the problem with all the smelliness to Bitcoin, having that immutable record, that immutable blockchain. It because usually the people that want to do the Coinjoin, they have Bitcoins that have a lower value than the quote unquote clean Bitcoin, and so they want to transfer value from the clean Bitcoin to the dirty Bitcoin. You know, that's why they want to do the Coinjoin. And so if they can find people that want a Coinjoin for free, then they're able to get that value transferred to them, right? So, you know, one, I think you're kind of giving up some value for free if you've got the clean Bitcoin. If you've got the dirty Bitcoin, then yeah, I mean, like, you want people to transfer that value to you. But that's, you know, why using Coinjoin on other chains, you know, especially like Mimblewimble implementations, because all of those are Coinjoin by default. You know, that's another problem is Coinjoining is opt-in, and so not everybody is doing it. And because of that, like, you have some problems. You know, it's a lot easier to kind of find the 3 people that are wearing a mask instead of if everybody's wearing a mask, right? So, you know, I just don't know that it's the best idea to be coin joining. You know, it's a lot of brain damage to have your accounts shut down, you know, especially when they've been AML and KYC'd properly and everything. Like, it's just a bunch of brain damage. And eventually you might find yourself blackballed from all the exchanges. And why'd you do that, right? Like, what benefit did you get out of that coin join, right? So, was it really worth the cost? And, you know, I don't want any brain damage. So, you know, I like, you know, I got my clean Bitcoins and I'm able to move them in and out of exchanges, and I've never had any problems from any of the exchange compliance officers. And I pay my taxes, and, you know, I'm in a very defensible position, you know, because I don't have to explain some transaction with a who knows who, right?
Yes. I can't end this interview without bringing up one thing, because you've said this a few times now during the interview. Mimblewimble. You've said it at least 3 different times. Are you impressed?
Well, that paper is amazing. Yeah, I mean, when that paper came out, you know, and then I watched Andrew Palestra's presentation on it, and isn't that crazy? His presentation even now only got 18,000 views. It's like nobody's aware of this. And I think it's really cool. You know, we got scalability, we got better privacy and fungibility characteristics with it. You know, I think it's a pretty cool feature set that can get implemented. And we have so much stuff, you know, whether it's a Lightning Network or, you know, the zero knowledge proofs, although I don't really like those because, you know, you can't have anything that risks the scarcity amount of the Bitcoin. But Mimblewimble, with the way it has excess values, you know, we're able to we can prove that scarcity of the total number of coins. So, I mean, it really is some cool moon math. And, you know, we're opening this new front in the privacy war. And I've been a big advocate for privacy stuff, you know, even before Mimblewimble existed. You know, just because I'm not necessarily a fan of Coinjoin doesn't mean I'm not a fan of privacy and fungibility. It's just, I don't think Coinjoin's the best way to accomplish that.
Yeah. I got to find that video that you say only 17. You say it's a great video. I haven't seen it either.
Yeah. Mimblewimble, Andrew Palestra.
Okay.
It's when he gave the presentation to the San Francisco BitDevs group.
I'm looking. Hopefully, it'll be linked to below. All right, then. Let's see if there were any other questions here before we tie it up. Okay, no other questions. Everybody was very happy. Very good. Trace, any final words you want to say about the project, or just the 2020s, or just, I mean, this is so exciting. We're entering this golden age decade for Bitcoin now, and there's so much. You know, we couldn't predict what would happen this last decade. Who knows what the heck's going to happen this next decade? I'm really excited.
Yeah, I mean, for real, like the 2010s were just amazing. You know, Bitcoin came out. We took a beachhead with, with scarcity, stock to flow, we got that economic substance with $100 billion plus market cap on Bitcoin. What's the next 10 years going to be like? That proof of concept's kind of over. Now we're moving into the 2020s. We have the time, the money, the resources, the human expertise to open an entire another front in the monetary war on privacy and fungibility and anonymity. So we're going to be fighting in Europe and we're going to be fighting in the Pacific, and we have the resources to do it. Freaking awesome. Like, it's going to be so much fun. And you're going to want to make sure that you hold the keys, like prove those keys, make sure that when, be the sovereign, be the one that gets to choose whether or not those Bitcoins move, not the slave asking for it to happen. Proofofkeys.com, like grow that monetary sovereignty spine, flex those muscles, prove those keys.
All right, that is a good way to end it. Have a strong hand. Well, thank you, Trace, for doing this show and for providing this service for everyone, spreading the word. Hopefully it grows every year. No doubt this will be the biggest one ever, because this is only the second one, but it's going to keep on spreading the word. People, check it out. I'll link to that Andrew Palester thing. I'm going to find that Mimblewimble thing and link to it below. But that's it, dudes. I am Adam Meister, and I flew from Baltimore to Tucson today, and I haven't slept very much. Remember, pound that like button, bang that bell button. Tomorrow is This Week in Bitcoin. JW Weatherman, BTC Benny, and Jeet are going to be on at 5 p.m. Eastern time. Who knows? Will it top the show? You never know what will happen here. It's the wild, wild west over here. But thanks a lot, Trace, again. And bye-bye, everyone. See you Friday.
Ciao.
See ya.
Thanks so much.
All right. Let me stop.